The hotel suite was alive with a nervous, buzzing energy, the soft clinks of whiskey glasses and the low thrum of music filling the space. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the lapels of my tuxedo with a slow, steady hand. Tomorrow was the big day, my wedding day, and tonight was supposed to be the final hoorah of bachelorhood. Man, you look like you're about to win an award or something, my best man, Chris, chuckled, tossing a bottle cap onto the couch. I laughed quietly, smoothing my hair. Feels more like stepping into a war zone, if you ask me. Yeah, the war of marriage, Chris teased, raising his glass in mock salute. To surviving the first year. Cheers to that, I said, clinking my glass against his. The mood was light, full of harmless ribbing, the way it always was between old friends. A few of the guys from college had come by earlier, dropping off well wishes and some very bad advice. It felt right. It felt normal. Until the door slammed open. I turned slowly, setting my drink down. There, standing in the doorway, was Justin, my best friend since high school, his tie hanging loose around his neck, a wicked smirk plastered across his flushed face. His movements were uneven, heavy, the stink of cheap whiskey rolling off him like smoke. Well, Chris muttered under his breath, shifting awkwardly. Justin, I said, keeping my voice even. Nice of you to finally show. Justin sauntered into the room, his hands stuffed into his pockets. His eyes, glassy and bloodshot, gleamed with something that wasn't just alcohol. Triumph. Something darker. You know, he said, his words slurred but deliberate. I almost didn't come. Thought maybe I'd already given you your wedding present. I frowned, watching him carefully. What the hell are you talking about? Chris stiffened beside me, sensing the shift in the room. Justin gave a low, ugly laugh and pulled a crumpled envelope from a jacket pocket. He tossed it on a coffee table. It slid across the polished wood, landing just inches from my hand. Open it, he said, grinning like a wolf. Consider it an early gift. For a moment, I didn't move. The room felt suddenly smaller, the air thicker. Chris shot me a concerned look, but I raised a hand to stop him. Calm. Breathe. No need to make a scene. I picked up the envelope and tipped the contents out. Photographs spilled across the table like fallen leaves. At first, my brain refused to process what I was seeing. Everly, my Everly, laughing, sprawled across my bed in my house, her dress bunched around her hips. Justin's face pressed to her neck, his hands on her thighs. Another shot, Everly straddling him, her head thrown back in a way I knew too well. A third, both of them grinning at the camera, shameless. Tonight, Justin said softly, while you were out getting fitted for your tux, planning your perfect day, she was with me. Chris cursed under his breath, stepping back as if he could distance himself from the betrayal staining the air. I looked up at Justin, who was now watching me with a twisted sort of glee. She was never yours, buddy, he said, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. She just settled. And believe me, she's better off with me. There was a silence, so heavy it felt like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Inside me, something shifted. Not the expected rage. Not sorrow. Not even the white-hot humiliation that should have gutted me where I stood. No, what I felt was a profound, chilling calm. Like the stillness before a hurricane. I smiled. Slow. Controlled. Deadly. Justin faltered slightly, confusion flickering across his face. Enjoy it, I said quietly, rising to my feet, each word measured and razor-sharp. I moved close enough that he could smell the cool leather of my jacket, could see the ice settling in my eyes. It's the last good night either of you will ever have. Justin blinked, the cocky mask slipping for just a fraction of a second. Chris just stared, wide-eyed, like he was witnessing something ancient and violent awakening inside me. I stepped back, straightened my jacket, and collected the photographs one by one with mechanical precision. Each image felt like a nail driven into something I'd once thought unbreakable. Get out, I said, my voice soft but deadly. Justin laughed awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. Come on, man, don't be like that. She chose me. It's better this way. You don't want to marry someone who out. My voice cut the room like a scalpel. Chris moved then, stepping between us, ushering Justin toward the door with a firm hand on his shoulder. Justin resisted for a moment, trying to say something else, but the door slammed shut behind him, leaving only a lingering stench of betrayal. The suite fell into silence again, but it wasn't the same. It was thicker, heavier, charged. Chris turned to me, his mouth opening, but I held up a hand. "Don't," I said. My tone brooked no argument. He closed his mouth, nodding, and after a long, painful pause, he quietly slipped out, giving me space. I stood alone in the center of the room, the city lights beyond the window blurring into a smear of neon and darkness. In my mind, I ran my fingers along the edges of the betrayal, turned it over, studied it. Not rage, not grief, purpose, precision. My reflection in the mirror caught my eye. The tuxedo, the neat hair, the ready-for-the-perfect-day look, and I almost laughed. A hollow, bitter sound. Perfect day, huh? I picked up my glass of whiskey again, swirling the amber liquid slowly. The ice clinked gently, an almost soothing sound. To surviving the first year, I murmured, raising the glass in a mock toast to my reflection. Then I downed it in one long, burning swallow. Morning light spilled through the curtains, warming the ivory walls of the bridal suite. The air smelled faintly of roses, champagne, and a future that was already dead. Everly sat at the vanity, humming softly as she applied a soft pink gloss to her lips. She was stunning, radiant in a way that would have broken me if I hadn't already buried whatever was left of my heart. "Good morning, fiancé," she chirped brightly when I entered the room, her smile easy, practiced. "Morning," I replied, my voice even cool, not missing a beat. She stood and crossed the room, throwing her arms around my neck. I allowed it, feeling the insincerity of her touch against my skin. She smelled like jasmine and guilt. "You're not supposed to see the bride before the wedding," she teased, tracing her fingers along the collar of my shirt. "Guess I like breaking the rules," I said with a small, hollow smile. She laughed, oblivious, and kissed my cheek. "You're tense," she said, pulling back to study me. "Nerves?" Something like that. Her eyes lingered on mine, searching for warmth, connection, something she could latch onto. I gave her nothing. A blank canvas. Let her paint whatever lies she needed to. Behind my mask, my mind was a hive of movement. While she fluttered about the room, giggling with her bridesmaids and sipping champagne, I moved like a shadow, making the final quiet arrangements. A quick text to the photographer. A private call to the event coordinator. An encrypted email to my lawyer. Every move stitched carefully into the fabric of the day, invisible to anyone who wasn't looking, and no one was. They were all too busy basking in the illusion of joy. "Baby, you're going to make the most handsome husband," Everly cooed, snapping a selfie of the two of us. I watched her from the corner of my eye, noting how easily she slipped into her role. The adoring fiancée, the innocent bride-to-be, the same woman who hours ago had wrapped herself around my best friend in my bed. I adjusted my cufflinks, hiding the tightening of my jaw. "You ready for forever?" she asked, nudging me playfully. I smiled, a slow, deliberate thing, and tucked a stray curl behind her ear. "More than you know." The ceremony was set at the Garden Pavilion, a breathtaking venue draped in white silk and crawling with fresh blooms. Guests milled about, laughing, sipping cocktails, oblivious to the rot beneath the surface. I stood at the altar as the music began, feeling the stares of friends and family, feeling their pride and happiness radiating toward me. It was almost enough to make me laugh. Chris stood at my side, giving me a wary glance. He knew, or at least, he knew something was off, but he said nothing. His loyalty was silent, and for that, I was grateful. The soft strains of the bridal march floated on the air, and the guests rose to their feet as Everly appeared at the end of the aisle, radiant in her white gown, her father at her side. She beamed at me, and for a moment the world seemed to slow. I could see it all, the lies stitched into the hem of her dress, the betrayal shining in the diamond on her finger. And I smiled, not the smile of a man in love, but the smile of a man who already knew the ending to the story. Everly reached me, and her hand slipped into mine, warm, trembling slightly. I squeezed it gently, just enough to steady her, just enough to play my part. The officiant began, his voice solemn and steady. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Everly and—" His words faded into a hum in my ears as I stared at the woman beside me, studying her the way a surgeon studies a patient before making the first cut. When it came time for the vows, Everly went first. "I promise to love you, to honor you, to be faithful to you," she said, her voice trembling with emotion, tears glistening in her perfect green eyes. A few sniffles sounded from the crowd. Her performance was flawless. Then it was my turn. I took the card from the best man, the neat, heartfelt vows I had written weeks ago, and slipped it into my pocket without even glancing at it. I met Everly's gaze, steady and cold beneath the surface. "I vow," I began, my voice clear and strong, "to always remember who you are and what you mean to me." She smiled, relief flooding her face. "I vow," I continued, "to honor the truth between us, even when it's hard to face." The smile faltered just slightly. "I vow to destroy anything that tries to tear us apart." A few heads tilted in confusion, but Everly laughed softly, mistaking the edge in my voice for nerves. "And above all," I said, my smile slicing like a razor, "I vow to be exactly the man you deserve." There was a pause, a beat too long, before the officiant recovered and moved on. The rings were exchanged, the kiss was given, a brief, formal thing, and the crowd erupted into cheers. I turned with her down the aisle, hand in hand, the perfect picture of happiness. Cameras flashed. Confetti rained down. "We did it!" Everly shrieked, throwing her bouquet into the crowd. I caught Chris's eye over her shoulder, and he gave me the slightest nod. No words, none needed. The reception was a blur of music, laughter, and toasts. Everly danced with her father, posed for photos, hugged old friends. She glowed, basking in the attention, playing her part to perfection. I moved through it all like a ghost, smiling, shaking hands, thanking guests, every step calculated, every word chosen with care. Because today wasn't about celebration. It was about setting the stage. And the actors had no idea they were already halfway through the play. The night air was cool, carrying the faint scent of lilacs from the garden below. I stood on the balcony of our honeymoon suite, a glass of bourbon in my hand, watching the stars scatter themselves across the velvet sky. Inside, Everly bustled around, slipping out of her wedding gown with little squeals of excitement and exhaustion. "I can't believe we're married," she gushed, laughing as she pulled on a silky white robe. She turned to me, her green eyes sparkling with manufactured affection. "Our first night as husband and wife. You coming to bed?" I smiled slowly, setting my glass down with a soft clink. "You go ahead. I need a few minutes to clear my head. Big day and all." She pouted, giving me a playful wink. "Don't make me wait too long." "I won't," I lied smoothly. She blew me a kiss and disappeared into the adjoining bedroom, the door clicking shut behind her. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Then, without a sound, I crossed the suite, slipping on my jacket and palming the small black recording device I had hidden earlier inside my luggage. It fit neatly into my hand, no larger than a pack of gum, and with a few clicks, it was active, silent, invisible. I left the suite, careful to let the door latch softly. Moving through the quiet, carpeted halls of the hotel, I made my way 3 floors down to room 718, a second suite I had booked under a different name, one Everly didn't know about. From there, I waited in the dark, listening, watching the hallway on a hidden feed. Because tonight wasn't about love or celebration. It was about confirmation. It was about gathering the last necessary pieces of their downfall. At exactly midnight, the hallway camera caught movement. Everly, cloaked in her robe, slipping quietly from our suite. Her movements were quick, practiced, the caution of someone who had done this before. She glanced down the hall, saw no one, and scurried 2 doors over, room 715. Justin opened the door, just a crack, then wider when he saw it was her. He grinned, that same cocky, lopsided smirk he'd worn the night before, and pulled her inside with an eager hand around her waist. I pressed my headphones in tighter, heart hammering not from pain, but from cold, sharp focus. The microphone hidden earlier inside Justin's suite, tucked neatly behind a vent, picked up everything. God, I thought he'd never go to sleep. Everly's voice whined, breathless. Justin chuckled, the sound low and smug. He's a sucker. Always was. She giggled. Poor idiot thinks he married his little angel. You're a lot of things, babe, Justin said, the sounds of bodies moving, hands sliding over fabric, filling the audio, but an angel sure as hell ain't one of them. Everly moaned softly. You're bad. You like bad, Justin growled. Another wet, needy sound like kissing. You know, Everly breathed between kisses. I almost felt sorry for him standing up there today, looking so proud, so in love. Justin laughed, a short, sharp bark of cruelty. He's a joke, Em. Always has been. He actually wrote me this sweet little vow about forever, she said, her voice dripping mockery. I almost died trying not to laugh. Their laughter twisted together, vile and self-satisfied. In that ring, Justin said, a rustle as he moved, probably tracing the diamond I placed on her finger. How much you figure he dropped on this little sparkle? Enough, Everly purred. Too bad it means nothing. You're mine now, Justin said roughly. Always were. Yours, she whispered back. A loud thump, maybe the bed. I muted the feed for a moment, focusing on my breathing. I wasn't interested in listening to them rut like animals. I didn't need the details of their betrayal. I needed their words, their arrogance, their admissions, and I had them, crystal clear, every filthy syllable. I flipped open my laptop, linking the recording live to the cloud. A permanent archive of their downfall. No chance of deletion, no chance of escape. I leaned back in a chair, hands folded behind my head, feeling for the first time in days a deep, dark satisfaction settle into my bones. This wasn't just infidelity. This was betrayal layered thick with contempt. They didn't love each other. Hell, they didn't even respect each other. It was about ego, about thrill, about selfishness dressed up as passion. And they thought I was blind to it. A part of me marveled at how easily they revealed themselves the second they believed they were safe. Like cockroaches scuttling out when the lights went off. More movement through the microphone now. Everly's voice floated through again, breathy and cruel. So, when do we tell him? Tell him. Justin snorted. Nah, let's milk it for a while. Live off his money, his name. When we're bored, we'll make up some story, get a nice divorce settlement. Take him for everything. Everly laughed, a harsh metallic sound. You're evil. Perfect match, then. Silence. Then the dull thud of the headboard knocking against the wall. I shut the laptop. I had heard enough. My hands moved with calm precision, encrypting the files, sending copies to secure drives, trusted contacts. I slipped off my jacket and leaned back into the armchair, staring at the dark ceiling. It was strange. There was no sadness anymore. No disbelief. No gnawing heartache. Just an icy clarity. They had written the terms of their own destruction with their mouths, with their greed, with their arrogance. And soon enough, they would read them out loud for everyone to hear. But not tonight. Tonight, I would let them savor the lie a little longer. Let them believe they'd won. Because the deeper the betrayal, the sweeter the retribution. The morning sun was brutal as it crept through the cracks in the heavy curtains, lighting up the chaos that was about to unfold. I sat at the small desk in my alternate suite, sipping black coffee, my laptop open in front of me. The screen glowed with cold, hard evidence, images, recordings, timestamp proof of betrayal, all organized into neat little folders. It was almost surgical the way I had arranged it. Efficient, thorough, merciless. Today was not for rage. Today was for reckoning. With methodical patience, I uploaded the first batch, photos of Everly and Justin from the night before the wedding. Justin, shirtless, Everly sprawled over him, her engagement ring glittering obscenely on her finger. I blurred nothing. A few clicks later, the files were scheduled. Time posts to every major social platform. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, TikTok. Anonymous, but linked by small watermarks, a wedding ring icon in the corner, a little joke only I would understand. Then came the private messages. Each family member, each close friend, each work colleague. One by one, I sent a neatly packaged email, a simple subject line. Congratulations to the happy couple. Inside, photos, audio clips, and a short, brutal message. Thought you'd want to see who you were really celebrating. No emotion, no explanation. The messages queued and fired like bullets from a gun. Finally, the piece de resistance. A special delivery, arranged through a rush courier service, addressed to Everly and Justin. Inside the package, a leather-bound photo album, filled cover to cover with high-quality prints of their betrayal, paired with snippets of their own trash-talking dialogue printed beneath. On the final page, a single note. This is your real wedding album. Enjoy it together, your favorite idiot. I closed the laptop softly, savoring the silence before the explosion. And then, the notification started. The first was a ping, a text from Everly. Everly, babe, what's going on? Why are people calling me? Then another. Everly, please answer me. Something's wrong. A call from her flashed across my phone screen. I declined it without hesitation. Moments later, another call, this time from Justin. I let it ring out, smirking at the desperate persistence vibrating in my hand. The text came faster now, like a flood breaking loose. Everly, people are saying there are pictures of me and Justin. What is this? Everly, tell me this isn't you. Please, please. Everly, I can explain everything. I swear. Explain everything. As if there was anything left to explain. The phone buzzed again, another call, then another. I turned it off completely, tossing it onto the bed. The panic was bleeding into the hallway now. Muffled voices, shouts from guests, family, hotel staff. I moved to the window, parting the curtains slightly. Down below, in the grand hotel lobby, the chaos had fully bloomed. Everly's father was shouting at someone. I caught flashes of angry hand gestures, red faces, tears. A bridesmaid ran past the fountain, sobbing into her hands. Chris, my best man, stood back, arms crossed, watching with a grim expression. He caught my eye from afar, or maybe he just felt me watching and gave a tiny, satisfied nod. The bomb had detonated, and they had no idea where it came from. Another notification buzzed on my laptop. Everly again, this time through email. Subject: please body. Baby, please. I love you. We can fix this. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. You mean everything to me. Please call me. I'm begging you. I read it slowly, savoring every word. The lies dripping from the screen, desperate and clumsy. How quickly the proud and the cruel became the desperate and pathetic when the mirror was held up to them. The hotel room phone rang. The shrill, old-fashioned kind bolted to the nightstand. I let it ring. Everly's voice filled the voicemail after the fourth missed call. Babe, please pick up. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I love you, okay? You're my husband. We're married now. We can figure this out. Please, please answer. Her voice cracked into sobs, raw and ugly. I leaned back against the window, feeling the sun warm my face, feeling the storm rage below me. Detached. Above it all, I thought about answering. Just once. Just to hear the desperation in real time. But no, let her sit with it. Let her choke on it. Justin's messages started pouring in next. Justin, bro, this is fucked up. Justin, you're ruining lives, man. Justin, be a man and talk to me. Justin, you need to grow the fuck up and let this go. I laughed out loud at that one. Grow up. The man who couldn't keep it in his pants around his best friend's fiancée now wanted to lecture me about maturity. Pathetic. The package would be arriving at their door within the hour. I had made sure of it. Same-day delivery. Special rush request. No signature needed. Let them open it together. Let them flip through each glossy page, each damning quote, each gleeful betrayal captured forever. I poured another cup of coffee, savoring the rich, bitter taste. Downstairs, I heard someone scream a raw, agonized sound. Probably Everly. Maybe Justin. Maybe both. Good. Let them scream. Let them feel even a fraction of what they had so carelessly carved into me. I sipped the coffee slowly, savoring the silence that followed. Because in the end, there was no need for me to lift a finger anymore. The truth was doing all the work for me. There was a knock at the door. Not the confident, playful knock Everly used to do, the light, teasing rhythm that meant let me in, I missed you. No, this was desperate, weak, frantic. I didn't move right away. I wanted her to stand there, to sweat, to feel the weight of everything crashing down on her. Another knock. Harder this time. Please. Her voice cracked through the door, hoarse from crying. Please, just open the door. Let's talk. Please. I rose slowly from the chair, my body heavy with calm. Every step toward the door was deliberate, a small cruelty I allowed myself. When I opened it, Everly stumbled forward, almost collapsing at my feet. Her face was a wreck, makeup smeared into ugly shadows under her red-rimmed eyes, lips trembling, hair tangled from God knows how much frantic pacing. She looked nothing like the polished, perfect woman who had walked down the aisle yesterday. She looked broken. Good. Babe, she whispered, voice shaking. I made a mistake. Please let's talk about this. We can fix it. I swear we can. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms casually over my chest. I didn't say a word. Her hands reached for me instinctively, and when I didn't move, they hovered awkwardly mid-air before falling to her sides. I didn't mean for it to happen, she blurted out, the words tumbling over each other. It was stupid. It was just, I was drunk, and Justin was there, and it just happened, okay? It didn't mean anything. You're the one I love. Her voice cracked on the last word like it physically hurt her to say it. I tilted my head slightly, studying her like a stranger might study a painting in a gallery, detached, critical. Mistakes are accidents, Everly, I said, voice sharp as glass. You planned this. She flinched like I had slapped her. No, I didn't. She shook her head violently, tears spilling over her cheeks. I wasn't thinking, I swear. It was one time, it didn't mean anything. I raised an eyebrow. One time, I asked, my voice dripping with ice. So what's the count now? Once? Twice? 3 times? More. Her mouth opened a silent, fish-like gasp. That was answer enough. She crumbled at my feet, sobbing into her hands. Real, ugly sobs, the kind that shook her entire body. The kind of breakdown you didn't perform for sympathy. This was real, raw, but it changed nothing. You destroyed everything for a few cheap fucks with my best friend, I said coldly. And you thought you could just cry your way out of it. Her head snapped up, eyes wide and pleading. I love you, she wailed. You're my husband now. We made vows. We can fix this. I barked a humorless laugh, stepping back from her. You broke those vows before the ink was even dry. Behind her, down the hallway, I could hear the low murmur of guests still whispering, scandalized. Word had spread like wildfire. Everly's perfect world had collapsed overnight, and there was no putting it back together. I'll do anything, she sobbed, crawling forward on her knees. Anything, please, just tell me what to do, I'll do it. I'll spend the rest of my life making it right. I looked down at her, pathetic, ruined, desperate, and felt nothing. You should have thought of that, I said evenly, before you spread your legs on my best friend. Her face crumpled like paper, a fresh wave of hysterical sobs tearing through her. I stepped around her and closed the door softly in her face. On the other side, she beat her fists weakly against it, screaming my name. I let her. I made my way back to the window, watching the chaos unfold below. Across the hotel courtyard, I could see Justin storming out of the building, dragging a suitcase behind him. His phone was pressed to his ear, and he was shouting, face twisted with rage. I couldn't hear him, but I didn't need to. I already knew. He had lost his job this morning. A courtesy call from the company's board after the scandal went public. Not a good look for the firm, they had said. We have to protect our reputation. Translation. You're screwed, buddy. Friends had dropped him like a hot coal. The wedding guests, many of them his too, wanted nothing to do with him now. His family, especially his strict, old-school father, had disowned him before lunchtime. I watched as he tried to flag down a cab, only to have one after another speed past him without stopping. Poetic. Meanwhile, Everly sat huddled against my door, sobbing uncontrollably. Occasionally she would whimper something, my name, maybe, or a plea, but I didn't bother listening. I leaned back against the window, arms folded, and let the destruction play out. This was what betrayal looked like. Not glamorous, not exciting, pathetic, desperate, ugly. After a while, Everly finally stood, staggering to her feet. She turned and pressed her forehead against the door one last time. "I love you," she whispered, so soft it barely reached me. I didn't answer. I didn't even move. And eventually, she stumbled away, leaving nothing behind but silence and the faint scent of her expensive perfume, clinging stubbornly to the air like a ghost. I turned back to the room, poured another coffee, and took a slow sip. Another piece of the wreckage had fallen, and I was just getting started. The courthouse smelled like cold marble and stale air, a fitting scent for the funeral of a marriage. I sat there, calm and collected, as Everly fidgeted nervously beside her lawyer, a woman who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Justin wasn't here. He hadn't shown his face publicly since everything exploded. Coward. The judge droned on, reading the terms aloud. Quick, clean, efficient. Thanks to the prenup Everly had once called pointless and unromantic, she was leaving with exactly what she brought into the marriage. Nothing. No house. No car. No money. Not even the wedding ring, which I had already pawned for a satisfying few $100s and a smirk. Everly couldn't even look at me. When the judge finally said, "Divorce finalized," I didn't feel grief, or rage, or even sadness. I felt free. As I rose from my chair, Everly scrambled to her feet, panic flashing across her face. "Wait," she whispered harshly, grabbing my sleeve. "Please, can we talk?" I looked down at her hand, then back into her hollow, bloodshot eyes. "No," I said simply. And with that, I walked out of the courthouse, leaving her standing there like a wilted flower in a thunderstorm. The gym became my new sanctuary. The first time I stepped onto the cold rubber matting, I still carried the stink of betrayal on my skin. Anger, hurt, all of it boiled under my ribs like acid. But with every push-up, every deadlift, every mile I ran until my lungs burned, I melted away. I turned pain into fuel, failure into fire. I grunted through sets of heavy squats, sweat dripping from my jaw, my muscles screaming in protest. Good. Let them scream. Let them suffer. Like I had. The iron never lied to me. It didn't kiss me and then laugh behind my back. It didn't make promises it never intended to keep. It just made me stronger. At first, it was about revenge, the shallow satisfaction of picturing Everly seeing me months later, ripped and confident, a man she could never touch again. But over time, it became something else, something better. I wasn't rebuilding myself for her anymore. I was doing it for me. Success followed like a shadow. I threw myself into my career, landing deals, smashing targets, climbing the ranks like a man possessed. Every handshake, every closed contract felt like another nail in the coffin of the old me. The man who believed in fairy tales. The man who thought loyalty meant something. He was dead and buried. One afternoon, I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of my new office, sipping an espresso, watching the city pulse below. My phone buzzed. I checked the notification with a lazy glance, a private message from an old mutual friend, the kind who still liked me more than them. "You gotta see this," it read, followed by a grainy photo. I tapped it open. It was Everly, sitting on a bench outside a rundown laundromat, cradling a cheap paper coffee cup in both hands like it was her last source of warmth. She looked rough, thinner, paler, eyes hollow and bruised from sleepless nights. Beside her, Justin slouched miserably, his beard patchy and overgrown, his clothes wrinkled and stained. They barely spoke, just stared in different directions, trapped in the wreckage of what they thought was worth betraying me for. I smiled. Not a bitter, angry smile. A satisfied one. Actions have consequences. Later that night, curiosity got the better of me. I found myself scrolling through social media, fingers moving lazily as I sipped a whiskey. Everly's old Instagram, once a shrine to her curated, perfect life, was now a wasteland. The comments under her old wedding photos were brutal. "Karma's a bitch. Should have kept your legs closed. Hope it was worth it." She hadn't posted anything new in months. Justin's LinkedIn profile showed him seeking new opportunities, a polite way of saying he was unemployed and desperate. Friends who used to laugh at my jokes at parties, who used to cheer for our relationship, now wouldn't answer their calls. Family had turned their backs. They weren't victims. They were outcasts. They had each other. That was their prize, rotting together in the ruins of their own making. Every small victory tasted sweeter than the last. Like when I ran into an old acquaintance at the gym who grinned and said, "Damn, man, you look good." Everly must be kicking herself, huh? Or when a recruiter called, offering me a better job at a competitor, a place Justin had once bragged about wanting to work but could never get into. Or when I caught a glimpse of Everly at the grocery store one afternoon, pushing a cart full of bargain bin groceries, wearing a worn-out hoodie and ripped sneakers, head down like she could disappear into the floor. She didn't see me, but I saw her, and I walked taller that day. Pain had forged me into something sharper, stronger, better. I wasn't the man who had knelt with a ring, trembling with hope and love. I wasn't the man who had believed words could outweigh actions. I was something else now, something untouchable. And as I poured another drink that night, lounging in my clean, quiet apartment, I realized something important. I hadn't just survived Everly and Justin. I had buried them. And the best part? I hadn't even needed to lift a finger after that first blow. They had destroyed themselves. All I had to do was stand back, light the match, and walk away. It was a crisp Saturday afternoon when I wandered into the little independent bookstore on the corner of Maple and Fifth. I didn't plan to. I had been out for a walk, clearing my mind, when a chalkboard outside caught my eye. Lost stories find new readers inside. Something about it pulled at me. Maybe I was finally ready for something new. The place smelled like old paper and cinnamon. Warm, welcoming, a quiet sanctuary from the noise of the world, and from the noise still rattling around in my own head. I browsed aimlessly at first, letting my fingers trail along the spines of forgotten novels and half-price poetry collections. It felt good, calming. That's when I saw her. She was kneeling by a low shelf, carefully reshelving books with gloved hands, a few wisps of chestnut hair falling into her eyes. She looked up, startled, when I accidentally knocked a book off the table. Our eyes met. She laughed, a soft, musical sound. "Don't worry. Happens all the time. Books can be rebellious." I chuckled awkwardly, picking up the runaway novel. The Alchemist. How fitting. "Maybe it's trying to find its next reader," I said, offering it to her. She smiled, a real, warm smile that reached her hazel eyes. Maybe it just found him. Her name was Claire. She volunteered here on weekends, she said, running literacy events for kids. A gentle soul. Nothing about her felt forced or fake. No heavy perfume, no rehearsed smiles. Just real. We talked about books, life, favorite coffee spots. It felt easy, but not too easy. I still felt the old scars under my skin. Still heard the ghosts whispering caution in my ear. But something about her made me want to try. Over the next few weeks, I found reasons to keep running into Claire. At first, it was casual, a coffee here, a book recommendation there. Then longer conversations, shared laughs, comfortable silences that didn't need to be filled with anything. One evening, after a small charity fundraiser the bookstore hosted, we found ourselves sitting on the curb outside, watching the stars come out. Claire hugged her knees to her chest, looking up at the night sky. "You ever think about how small we are compared to all that?" she asked. "All the time," I admitted. "Makes everything else seem less permanent, less terrifying." She turned her head to study me, a soft curiosity in her gaze. Terrifying? I hesitated. The old instinct screamed at me to shut down, to smile, nod, keep it surface level. Safer that way. But something in her patience, in her quiet acceptance, made me say the words anyway. "People," I said finally. "They terrify me sometimes." Claire didn't pry, didn't ask for the story behind my guarded voice. She just nodded, understanding without needing the details. That night, as I watched her walk away under the streetlights, I realized something painful and beautiful. I wanted to trust again. I was scared as hell, but I wanted it. Trust didn't rebuild itself overnight. There were moments, ugly, hollow moments, when a text message delayed or a missed call would twist something sour in my gut. when my mind would flash back to Everly's betrayals, whispering that history would just repeat itself. Claire noticed, of course. She wasn't stupid. One evening, as we sat at a small cafe near the river, she reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. "You don't have to fight alone anymore," she said gently. "Not every story ends the same way." I looked at her hand, small and warm over mine. No claws, no knives hidden between fingers. Maybe, just maybe, not every person was a loaded trap. It was about a month later, on a quiet Sunday morning, that the past decided to crawl back into my life. I was leaving the coffee shop, a place Claire had introduced me to, carrying 2 cups and a paper bag of scones, when I saw her. Everly. She looked even worse up close. Pale, drawn, hair stringy under a knitted cap. Her coat hung off her frame like it didn't fit anymore. She rushed toward me the moment she saw me, desperation radiating from every trembling step. "Please," she gasped, blocking my path. "Please, can we just talk?" I didn't say anything, didn't flinch, just stared at her, calm and quiet. Tears welled in her eyes. I made a mistake, okay? A huge, terrible mistake. I was stupid and selfish, and I lost everything. I stayed silent. "I can't sleep," she sobbed. "I can't eat. I think about you all the time, about how good you were to me, how you loved me when I didn't deserve it." She reached out, trying to touch my arm, but I stepped back. Claire's coffee grew cold in my hand, but I didn't care. "I was scared," Everly cried. You were too good for me, and I didn't know how to handle it, and Justin, he was just there, and I ruined it. I ruined everything." She dropped to her knees right there on the sidewalk, sobbing so loudly a few people turned to look. I stared down at her, the woman I had once thought was the center of my universe. Now, she was just a broken shell of bad choices and regret. "You chose your fate, Everly," I said quietly, voice steady. "I chose better." Her sobs broke into a low, keening sound, but I didn't stay to listen. I stepped around her, coffee and scones still in hand, and walked away toward something new, something real, something I hadn't even dared to hope for not that long ago. The news reached me almost accidentally. It was a drizzly afternoon, and I was scrolling absent-mindedly through local updates on my phone while sipping a coffee in my new office, a cozy space above the bookstore where I'd recently launched my consulting firm. I wasn't looking for anything about them. They didn't occupy my thoughts much anymore. But there it was, a series of furious posts, raw and ugly, cluttering a mutual acquaintance's feed. Justin and Everly, the toxic love story had finally imploded. Apparently, desperation made cowards into cannibals. Later, more details trickled in through whispers and screenshots. Justin, stripped of his job, blacklisted by mutual friends, drowning in debt, had turned on Everly viciously. In his eyes, it was all her fault, her games, her manipulation, her stupidity that had gotten them exposed. "You ruined everything," he had screamed at her, according to a neighbor who overheard one of their fights through the thin walls of their cheap apartment. "You and your pathetic need for attention." She fought back, of course, accused him of being the one who initiated everything. Claimed she only went along with it because she felt abandoned by me. Pathetic. Their arguments grew louder, nastier. Police were called more than once for domestic disturbances. No charges, just broken glass and broken dreams. Eventually, Justin packed up and left without warning. No goodbye, no apology, just gone. He blamed her for his ruined life and made sure everyone knew it. Their so-called love, once the excuse for their betrayal, had been nothing but a fragile illusion, shattered under the weight of real consequences. I heard, through even fewer channels now, that Everly tried to keep the apartment for a while. But with no steady job and rent piling up, she eventually lost it too. Last anyone knew, she was couch surfing between distant relatives who pitted her too much to kick her out outright, but resented her too much to truly welcome her. Her bright future, her fairy tale dreams, gone, dust and ashes. She was well and truly alone. Meanwhile, my life bloomed. The consulting firm I'd quietly launched, an idea born during those sleepless, rage-fueled nights after the betrayal, was growing faster than I had dared hope. Small businesses, startups, even a few mid-sized companies had flocked to me for advice, drawn by my calm professionalism and, ironically, my experience with crisis management. Funny how pain taught you to see pitfalls before anyone else could. I had a small team now, loyal, hardworking, good people. Claire, who I met that day in the bookstore, eventually became more than just my girlfriend. She became my partner in every sense, helping me manage the business, supporting my ambitions, and believing in me on the days I still wrestled with the echoes of old wounds. We didn't rush things. Trust had to be earned, brick by careful brick. But she was patient and real, and somehow the walls I had built to survive started turning into foundations for something stronger. There was one evening, late summer, where everything crystallized. I was locking up the office after a long, satisfying day. Claire stood beside me, laughing as she juggled a stack of papers that almost toppled from her arms. The sun was setting, throwing a golden glow over the little street below. The bookstore's chalkboard had a new quote scrawled on it: "The best chapters come after the broken ones." I stood there for a moment, key in hand, watching her smile, feeling the cool breeze on my face, hearing the hum of life being lived right. And it hit me, a deep, resonant peace in my chest. Not the fragile, angry satisfaction of revenge. Not the bitter thrill of watching others fall. But something pure. Happiness. Real, untouchable happiness. Later that night, after we'd eaten takeout on the couch and made plans for a quiet weekend trip, I stood out on the balcony, looking over the sleeping city. I thought briefly of Everly, of the ruins she had made of herself, of the man who had helped her do it, and how quickly he had abandoned her when the fun dried up. I didn't hate them anymore. There wasn't enough of them left inside me to hate. They had carved out their own grave with their lies, their selfishness, their betrayals. They had lived their truth, and it had destroyed them. While I, once broken, once furious, stood taller, freer, and more alive than I had ever been. I leaned against the railing, breathing in the cool night air, feeling Claire's soft laughter from inside the apartment where she waited for me. A small, satisfied smile curled my lips as I whispered to the stars, "The best revenge is happiness they can never touch." And with that, I turned back toward the life I had built, one they would never be part of, no matter how much they begged, blamed, or regretted. It was mine now, completely, absolutely, irrevocably mine.